welcome back. So yes, we're focusing on what you might just saw, community policing. What are the expectations from the authorities and what should they be? How is it going to eventually materialize in terms of operationalizing all of this? What kind of results will we expect at the end of the day? So these are some of the issues that our guest will be addressing this morning. We've got Gava Show, who is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, joining us from our studios in Abuja. We also do have sitting beside him, Honorable Rima Shaulu, who is the former Chairman, House Committee on the Army. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chamberlains.
All right, let me start with you, Mr. Shaulu. Now, yes, the 13 billion has been approved for the purposes of community policing, but even before the IG spoke and afterwards, many still trying to wrap their heads around what do we expect. Now, on the part of the authorities, having approved that, what do they have in mind in terms of the time frame, the structure, when this will kick in and begin to get in results? What's the thinking of government in that light?
Well, thank you for giving us this opportunity, and to say that the country has been talking about the need for state policing, community policing. You know, the language are changing from time to time. Finally, we are here, and it has taken off. The essence of the government funding at this time is to do 2 or 3 things. One is to ensure training, you know, for those who are to be recruited to join the service. And 2, to enlighten the public about the functionality of the new system. And 3, to procure equipment. But again, above all of these things also is the need to streamline, you know, the processes as embarked upon by the various states and sub-regions of the country. It is essentially a police activity. It is under the police force of the Federation. It will supervise it. It has set up the structure. Your report has just indicated this. The IG has outlined the structure for it. This will bring everyone in line with what the police aspires to have on the ground as community police. So obviously the gains are pretty obvious. When we know, as members of the community, we know ourselves better. We know all the nooks, the crannies. We know who is who. And so therefore, it is not difficult for intelligence to be supplied, you know, for effective law and order management in our own communities.
Yeah. Mr. Shaw, some would wonder, you know, why it is taking us so long. Well, granted, you have said, I mean, we've been talking about it for some time and we are here now. This was first broached in 2002, March precisely, when some conversations began. Some people were even trained to begin what they call community policing development, training others who would also be involved in this. Just so we do not go back into, you know, where we were before, what do you think were the reasons why we had such 18-year delay until we got to this point, so we don't go back there?
Well, I will merely speculate because I can only speak for why it has taken the Buhari administration as much time to come to this point. But I think that on the overall, the history of state or community police in the country has been well documented. Going back to the First Republic, it is clear that native authority police that we had then was merely an instrument for the oppression of people who are opposed, you know, to the powers that be, whether at the native authority level or at the regional level. The country's experience was a horrid one indeed, and it is not surprising, therefore, that regional police was abolished for a national police, because that of course had helped to ensure a proper management and control and the abuse to which the police had become subject. For President Muhammadu Buhari, his concern had always been about the spread and the misuse of weapons in the hands of police. He said it repeatedly that, look, a lot of the states that had clamored for state police, many of them were unable to cope with the salary payments. If you hire a community policeman and give him a gun and keep him for 5-6 months without salary, what do you expect? So I think that efforts all this time had been taken to ensure that situations of this sort did not arise. And so therefore they need to streamline and ensure that there is a standard national procedure and prescription for each of the states to abide, to comply with.
Okay, let's bring in Honorable Shaulu on this matter. I mean, yes, you've heard from Mr. Shehu, and then the IGP has also given some indication as to how some of these things may turn out. Does this dwarf all of those arguments about state police, since community policing, the funds have been released for it now? I beg your pardon, approved, not released yet.
Actually,
we'll come to Mr. Shehu on that. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mr. Shaulu.
Actually, for me, it's like a child is looking for something. Is looking for, let me use the modern technology. Is looking for a car to ride. Then you come and give the child a toy. I don't think that toy is going to solve any problem. It's not going to change the agitations. The community policing, as we know, cannot solve the problem, cannot answer the questions that were raised by people who are agitating for state policing. Now, Nigeria is about one of the few places on the surface of the earth today that has what you have one person, the IGP, controlling over 350 people. 1,000 people who are under his command. The United Kingdom that created the police for us has moved away from that. You don't have a situation where you have one IGP sitting in Abuja controlling what is happening in faraway places. We have developed, the world has developed in a way that we have the country has been divided in our case into states, into local governments. And of course, people are agitating that in these local governments, in these states, you should have a situation where the people are able to have a say in their security. Now, my friend and colleague, former colleague, Garba, alluded to what happened in the First Republic. I'm just releasing the second edition of my book, The Story of Gambo Sawaba. This woman was jailed 16 times by the native police. And she was jailed, and some of the reasons for which she was jailed were as simple as going to campaign that the NEPU, the party which she belonged to, should be allowed some things. We also had a situation where the native police insisted that if you are going for a rally, you could not criticize the government. So there were a lot of abuses that led to the formation and strengthening of the federal police system that we have it. And indeed, it is now the only police system that we have in the country. Unfortunately, it has failed. The fact that you have vigilantes, imagine. The fact that you even have, today we have the creation of the Civil Defense Corps. The fact that the National Assembly successfully passed a bill to create another body. And we've had almost every community, you had vigilante groups, imagine, show that the police control from the federal government at the rate which is being controlled cannot solve the problems of policing in the country. And I do not think that any form of federal community policing, any form of policing that is controlled from Abuja can solve the problem of of crime in the communities. I believe that what we should do at the federal level is to work on a regulatory framework, a procedure for how the states and various communities can protect themselves. And I think time has come, in my own opinion, that we need to deconstruct the Nigerian police. What do I mean by deconstructing the Nigerian police? The Nigerian police is too big to succeed. It cannot succeed. It has not succeeded in the past, and it has no chance of succeeding now because the problems are increasing and the funding available for the police is not much. I do agree, and I shudder at the prospects of having a governor, for instance, in Nigeria, without a strong state house of assembly, controlling a strong judiciary, creating and controlling the police. You can just imagine the type of operation that will take place in those states. In the same manner, you agree with me completely that we all do know today that local government elections are not conducted in the country. The states simply write out results. And so if you now allow a situation where the governors, without an independent legislature in the state, a truly independent judiciary in the state, if you allow state governors to have men under arms that they are controlling, apart from the danger that they cannot pay their salary, you are going to have a situation where a crime is going to be multiplied in the country. So I think our role at the federal level would have been, in my opinion, to create a regulatory framework, to bring a legislation to the National Assembly, a framework for community policing to be conducted, and to allow room for states. This may require constitutional amendments. Allow room for states to create the type of forces that they need to create and the types of crime and responsibilities that they can effectively have oversight of. Today, if you go to the United States, for instance, in America, you do not have a state police controlling just everything, just anything that comes to their way. There are things that they cannot do. So if we create a regulatory framework and allow the states to do some things, we might be comfortable after we allow an independent legislature to exist in the states, because presently they do not exist in the state as far as I'm concerned. For most of the states, they do not exist.
You may want to explain that a little further, Honorable Shaul, because on the one hand, you are saying we need state police. On the other hand, you are saying we are not ready for it, that the governors are going to control it. And then you are saying that we need a regulatory framework where the state police is going to be responsive, and then the legislature needs to be independent. So what exactly are you saying? We're not ready for the state police, or we should just go with what we have now and then develop into it later?
Under the present system that we have, it is my opinion, under the system that we have today, it is my opinion that if you allow the state governors, for instance, to create a force that they arm, you are going to have the same thing that happens when local government elections are conducted, happen in terms of security, and that will be very dangerous for the country. That is one. Number two, the point that is related is that we cannot continue to maintain an omnibus big and, in my opinion, so big that it is prone to failure, a police system that somebody in faraway Bayelsa, his fate is decided here in Abuja, that that cannot work. It has not worked in most parts of the world, and the world has moved away from there. If you go to Germany, for instance, they have a different police system where states have their police, and there are specific regulations as to what they can do and what they cannot do. If you go to even the United Kingdom, where we borrowed our system from, our colonial system emerged from. We have what they call constabularies. And the constabulary chief, the chief constable, answers to the minister, who is a member of parliament. And he does not answer. You don't sit in London and decide what happens in Leicester, for instance. The police in Leicester are the ones that determine what happens there. So, but here we have a system that a small criminal case in faraway Taraba sometimes will have to come to Abuja for determination. That cannot work. And of course, the truth of the matter is that our police numbers are too few. We have too few police on the street.
From you the moment, but let me go to Mr. Shehu. Just hang on, Shawulu. Just hang on a minute. Mr. Shehu, before you respond to what he's saying, I mean, at some point I was asking, saying the funds had been released. So could you speak to that? Has the funds been released, or what's the plan for that before you respond to his comments?
No, I'm not following up on that issue.
Okay.
Announcement was made last week. I'm not in a position to say whether the money is released or not at this time.
Okay, go ahead and respond to what he says then.
Well, I think that, well, I hope, let me first of all say that I hope my friend, we've been practicing as journalists with the RIMA for many years, and he was a very troublesome NUJ person, so I can understand where he's coming from. But let me, I think that, and I hope that the policeman, armed policeman who accompanied him to this studio did not hear his condemnation of the write-off of the entire police force. They're doing their best for the country, and I think that they need encouragement. My response to it, what he has said, is that I think largely he agrees that there has been abuse. He's even disclosed that he's written a book on the past abuse of the regional police in the country. We can talk about Germany and UK and America, but each country has its own history. In our own case, we all also have our own country. We had this policing, local policing in the past. It was abused, and not only that, this is a country that had experience with very powerful regions in the past, to the point that the regions had threatened the center. They had threatened actually the unity of the country, the continued existence of the country as one. And so therefore, I think when people are trying to be careful and find that there's a very powerful center controlling the police, the understanding is that this is proceeding from our history, and it is not isolated from our past experiences.
Okay, well, look, I think Makba is also here. She's got some questions for you. Makba, go ahead.
Indeed, I do have questions for Mr. Garba Shehu. Looking at what transpired last year when community policing was introduced, there was a bit of controversy. We saw what happened in the Southwest governors coming together to form Amotekun. And then, the ensuing controversy about whether or not that was backed by law. Eventually, we did see a legal framework come out of that. We saw governors in the Southeast as well come up with suggestions in terms of how to go about community policing, which seemed to generate some controversy with policing or with police authorities at the national level. The IG of police was going up and down quite a bit to try and resolve the differences. Do we now have a framework of sorts that has been approved, given the understanding now that 13 billion naira has been released for community policing to happen across the 36 states of the Federation?
Yes, you are right, Maupi. It is whatever name they go by, Amotekun or whatever, they will be streamlined and they will be run in accordance with the structure as defined by the Inspector General of Police. They will be localized, they will be owned by local communities, they will be managed by them. The constitution of the committees has been defined as including, council chairmen, traditional rulers, religious leaders, civil society groups, and all of that. So you're going to have a single type structure of community policing permitted all across the country, and whatever is not in line with this does not have a place in the new scheme of things, and that's my understanding.
Potential problems that could arise from that, given that community policing is supposed to be unique to the community, and it cannot be a one-size-fits-all, because communities are different. And, might prefer to be policed differently, or might come up with different. See any potential conflicts coming out of that?
Well, I don't think there will be any conflict, because in all of our states and the local councils, because that is the order of the structural order of the policing, there will be state committees, there will be local council communities, and there will be local community settings. I think that if there is a conflict, it will be with some initial perceptions that some grouping of states can put together, armed policemen on a regional scale. That I believe has not have a place in the new scheme of things.
All right, gentlemen, let's go to break. We'll come back and continue this conversation in a moment. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. Well, Mr. Shehu, could you just clarify, did you say that all of those regional security outfits, for instance, Amotekun, that has been established and backed by law in the southwest states, will all be streamlined? As a result, they will not function as Amotekun, but they will streamline themselves into community policing. Is that your point?
Nomenclature can just, they can choose their own nomenclature. It doesn't make a difference, but structurally, there is a governance structure for all state and local council community policing mechanisms, and this should abide in all of the states. And mind you also that even in the case of Amotekun, there is no law that is regionally binding on the mechanism put in place. Each state parliament put together their own legislation. Yes, there were similarities in so many ways, but the fact, you don't take away the fact that each state, Amotekun, is an initiative of a given state in the Southwest.
Well, let me take this to Honorable Shaulu, and perhaps, in the same vein. Members of the National Assembly come from different states, House of Assembly, House of Representatives, and the Senate. Each one of you have come from different states with peculiar security challenges, and you have said that the issues of security is so peculiar to the localities that governing the police from the central is perhaps asking for a little too much. Is there anything or any kind of conversation among members of the National Assembly over the years, or even in this 9th Assembly, to say, you know what, let's do something about this? Any conversation along that line?
Well, the first thing I want to say before I respond to you, that I think eventually this law, whatever regulations the IGP has made, by law is supposed to go to National Assembly for ratification. By the spirit and letter of our Constitution, the IGP cannot go and make laws. So whatever the IGP instructions the IGP is giving to the states will have problems. What if those instructions that the IGP is giving conflict with the regulations, that the laws made by the state houses of assembly? I think we need to solve this problem in a holistic manner. And that is first to amend the Constitution, in my opinion, to deconstruct. I know there have been several initiatives, including creating a police trust fund and so forth, and there are several amendments that have been proposed. There are still amendments that are being worked on, part of which is to deconstruct the police in such a way that the police can function, can be very functional, and we can achieve results. Now the
go
issue
to the
of,
just one moment before you go to that, to the issue and the other issues that you have raised. Now, you said that there is a need for the IG to bring whatever it is that's going to guide the operationalization of the community policing to the National Assembly. Well, some may even wonder why that is, since it's just regulations for a law that already exists. Plus, you remember that there is a small committee of the National Economic Council set up to champion the operationalization of this, which is made up of the IG, the Governors Forum chairman, the Minister of Finance, and one other person. Isn't that something that, you know, would subsist?
Well, I wish my friend Garuba were sitting where I'm sitting. You know, we're in the era of alternative facts. We're in the era where anything goes. People say what they want. You will recall that there was a time that money was taken out of the excess crude account before the matter was brought to the National Assembly. That can only happen. That is also one of the weaknesses that we have in our system. You cannot go and make a rule and implement it before you come to, it's completely out of context, not correct. The fact that the president, or even if it were the president, makes a pronouncement does not translate that into a law. It has to be brought for the proper thing to be done before you operationalize it. And I think that doing this thing without proper discussion and much discussion is going to create problems. I want to tell you upfront before we go further that as far as I'm concerned, first of all, we need to do amendments to the Constitution and create the conditions. I do know, as a matter of fact, that we came from the era of abuse of state police, regional police, and of native authority police. But we cannot remain in that because the same abuses that took place in the native police and the regional police today take place at the national level. That's why the states are complaining. That's why we created the civil defense. That's why we wanted to create the Peace Corps. That's why we even have vigilante bill before the National Assembly. They are all signs of the fact that we need to look at this system holistically. And I think that if we just go ahead to paper it, because this is just responding to the frustrations of the state governors. And
okay, let me jump in at that point.
It's not just the southwestern states.
Yeah, let me ask you then, because, I mean, yes, these issues are there, but we all remember that when this matter came to the National Assembly, it fell through. They didn't see reason why they should amend the laws to allow for state policing.
No, that's what I'm saying. The National Assembly, the constitutional, the issue of constitutional amendments is not what National Assembly per se can do. You need to build a national consensus around it to be able to amend the Constitution, because you require 240 members of the House of Representatives and 24 state houses of assemblies. And we do know that the state houses of assemblies, how they are controlled. So the fact that it failed before does not mean that we cannot go ahead to do it. And the point I was trying to make is that we need to build systems before, because the response, the idea of having community policing as a response to the agitations for state police cannot remove the agitations. The agitations will continue. And we don't need to have the tension that we are going to generate. What we need to do is to look at our laws, look at where we have failed, and see how we can amend them. One of the challenges that we have, I do agree that the police may have done the work that it needs to do. And I've also, on the floor of the House, I have had the chance to point out the fact that we are one of the most under-policed countries in the world. The ratio of police to the civil population is one of the lowest in the world. For a country that is in the type of crisis that we have, we don't need to have that. And I also think that if you are throwing 13 billion, that 13 billion, what is it going to do? How many vehicles will it buy? How many radio are you going to have? How about the personnel that you need to recruit to do this work? So we are not looking at this problem holistically. We are looking at it piecemeal. And I think my opinion is that the community policing is a response to agitations for state police, and it's not a good response. We need to sit down, walk through this, think through this, and we need to do the appropriate constitutional amendments. For instance, we can have traffic police that does not report to the IGP. We can have a police on serious crime that reports to the serious crime office, does that work. We have police that do different types of things that report to different types of... So you have more efficiency like it happens in other countries. We cannot say that we cannot copy other countries because even the clothes and the watch, the expensive wristwatch that my friend is wearing there, it was not made in Nigeria. If you wear a watch that is not made in Nigeria, where will you not copy a good practice from other parts of? If they have succeeded, if what they are doing is good, where can't we copy them? Instead of saying that we're unique, we cannot copy, and we keep doing things in the wrong way. I think we should wake up and do things properly. That is my point.
Even though we couldn't see Mr. Show's hand from here, but you just spoke about... But let's bring in Markwe on this. Markwe's got some questions as well.
Indeed, I do have questions for Mr. Garba Shehu and also Honorable Shawulu. Now, Mr. Shehu, you have said that the regional nature of Amateco in the Southwest could be a source of conflict, even though you've also made it quite clear that states did pass legislation on a state-by-state basis. It will seem that not everyone is convinced that this structure as set up by the Southwest governors is not regional, even though they have made the point over and over again that it's not meant to be regional. What they're saying is that they do not want criminals to be able to escape from one state and get away in another. What sources of conflict do you think could arise from that arrangement? One. And then the second is, raising issues from Honorable Shawulu's submissions about the 13 billion naira. What precisely is that money meant for?
Okay, I think that as the way things, let me first of all say that actually I'm wearing a plastic watch, so it's not the type that parliamentarians use. So the thing is, I'm not sure that this thing has been well thought out, because as you can see, the pronouncements on the funding from the center actually was made by the office of the vice president, who presides over the National Economic Council, made up of the governors. So governors are carried along in all of these things. And there's a full understanding that this is the way to go. So I think that perceived issues of conflict have been, put as, I think they're all behind them, and the country is ready to move on with the thing. The important thing I like to stress is that it may not be exactly as some people want it, but this is a good starting point, because the thing is, even if you set up state police, and state police conducts itself in the same manner as the federal police now does, as a government force without the participation and the involvement and recruitment of popular participation, it cannot take you anywhere. So this goes to the root of really the problem of the establishing cooperation and the community stakeholdership in matters of intelligence gathering and law enforcement. Ownership is supposed to be by communities, by local council, by the states. Yes, it is a response to agitation for states police, but then it is the answer that we now have, given all of the experiences that we have in the country. What is that money to be used for? I said earlier on, it will be used for training, it will be used for public enlightenment and equipment.
Have we decided how it's going to be disbursed?
I think that there is a committee of the National Economic Council working with the Inspector General of Police and the Minister of Police Affairs. They will decide how this will go. Are you afraid that states based on political leaning may not? I don't think this is the way the system works.
Well, let me quickly go to Honorable Shawulu. Honorable Shawulu, you have emphasized how important it is. Sorry, how important it is for this to come to the National Assembly for legislation. However, there are fears that this talks, or all of the talks, should have happened before this money was approved. Now that monies have been approved, do you think that we could still have a dispassionate look at creating a framework, a legal framework for community policing?
Yeah, there always been need. Even when the $1 billion was taken from the excess crude account, a bill still had to come to the National Assembly. So eventually that discussion will take place, I believe. However, I think that if we look at what is happening in the country as regards this issue of our security, my opinion is that we are not looking at our security very holistically, and we'll keep having the type of challenges that we have. We're looking at it piecemeal as a response to agitations for state police. But you know that it's not just the southwestern states that created those ones. I remember Rivers State created, they were stopped. Benue did, Taraba did, they were all disbanded. Now, the question you ask, can these state governors now resurrect what they were doing? And how do these ones interface with the new structure that are coming? All these complications can only be resolved by having proper amendment to the Constitution, and secondly, proper amendment to the Police Act. It is necessary to do these things. We are so fond of doing things before we think about them in this country. There's a funny story that we imported turbines to generate electricity, and the turbines we did not consider the fact that they could not be, we had no bridges, no roads that could transport them to where they were supposed to be. And it's because we are doing things in silos. Everybody does his own thing. If you go to countries that have developed, countries that are advancing, countries that are stable, most things that are done are properly discussed. They take years. There's full discussions take place. All issues are attended to. All parameters and possible side effects of those issues are brought up, and they are discussed before certain decisions are taken. And so countries can afford to take decisions that are long-lasting.
Do you think that discussion is still possible? Can we still hold it dispassionately? Because some people might say, now that 13 billion naira has been approved, what a number of legislators will be looking to do is ensure that their states get their fair share. Because we're still living in a sharing economy, to ensure that what is due to their states and their constituencies come to their constituencies, rather than focusing on the real matter of security. Do you think that we can still hold that discussion, or there will be a hurry to quickly, pass this, let's do this quickly so that the monies can be disbursed? Do you think that's what's going to happen? Or do you fear that that could happen?
My sister, that seems to be a very big blow below the belt for us in the National Assembly. I think we still hold a dispassionate discussion. I don't think that, I even think, my own opinion, that 13 billion naira is really nothing for security challenges that we have. 13 billion is too small. It cannot do much. So anyone struggling to get a share of the 13 billion, I think, really does not understand. The dispassionate discussions would need to be held. And I don't think that 13 billion naira is so big amount of money that states will be fighting over. If you have to share 13 billion among the states, no state is going to get more than 300 million naira. 300 million, are you going to rent the office? What are you going to do with it? That was my point from the beginning, that we need to do this properly so that we can now come up with a budgetary framework to support whatever is happening at the state level. There are many places that you go in this country today that we don't have policemen. or that you are looking for police, you don't have. Especially in the rural communities. You go to a community, you discover that just 5 or so policemen taking care of a large area. That's why I said we need more funding to improve the manpower and to improve the training. And just 13 billion on a framework. But if we are using that money on creating the framework, I think it's good money spent. But we need to create the framework on how this can work.
Let me take this to Mr. Garba Shehu. One of the issues that a number of people have raised over the years has been that of funding. And yes, just as we all know, and Mr. Honorable Shaulu just mentioned, is the fact that, money has been approved, but then is the issue of release. Over the past 5 years or thereabout, we have seen that, well, quite a chunk of money allocated or budgeted for the police is hardly ever released. To a large extent, we'll see that something in the region of between 50 and 60%, or sometimes even less, is released for them. So in that context, if this project is going to succeed, definitely funding will play a major role. What's the assurance we have or we can get that whatever funds allocated for the police, both for this project and other projects, their regular job, is going to be released 100% so that they can do their jobs as effectively as expected?
Well, you know that we are a country with serious challenges. Look, the police are contending for funds along with all the others, the universities, the army, social welfare, sports. Everyone is taking from the same basket. And when there is a paucity, when there is a shortage, then the shortage will obviously have to go around. But you can see that actually one of the key arguments for the state community policing is the issue of the ownership itself. So the communities will not own the police mechanism in their own communities and say that they have nothing to contribute. In any case, there's a lot of support, community support in many areas going on in the country where people come together and they procure buildings and motor vehicles and so many things for the police. There isn't enough money from the center to fund all of these things. And this is why the idea of a police trust fund was also actioned by the federal government. It is now in place. So funding will come not only from the appropriation by the National Assembly at the Center for the Police, the trust fund is there, but communities must actively be involved. It's already happening in many areas. Look at some of the industrial zones, say in Lagos, for instance. You find that police stations located in some of those areas are well endowed because communities around them, they realize how important it is that they have effective policing. And they don't wait for the government to provide. I think this is what the community policing will do for the entire country.
All right, then, gentlemen, we have to thank you both for coming on. Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, as well as Honorable Rima Shaul, who is the former Chairman, House Committee on Army Services. Even though, Honorable Shaul, we didn't quite get what you meant when you thought, Mr. Shehu, you wish he would share seat with you. Are you indirectly asking him to share seat with you in the National Assembly eventually?
In that if Shehu were a member of the PDP, I believe that now the country will be on fire because I know him, we were in the media together. He is now speaking very selectively. He has selective amnesia. He chooses what is good and what is no good. So maybe when he writes his memoirs, we'll know the truth of everything.
All right, then. We'll look forward to that and see what happens. Thank you, gentlemen, for talking to us. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're still talking policing. Now we've got Mr. Adelaye Oyebade MNI, who is the DIG in charge of research and planning with the Nigerian police. He also oversees the Southwest Geopolitical Zone, and actually community policing is under his purview. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Now, several questions.
Thank you so much.
All right, about community policing, what do we expect? Can the police make this happen? As presently constituted, many just have huge questions. So could you go ahead and tell us, how is the police going to practicalize this community policing initiative under this IGP?
Thank you so much. Let's start from where we are coming from. And we know that Nigeria Police, under the present Inspector General of Police, is making all efforts to make policing community-driven. And that informed the concept of community policing. And if we go down the memory lane, the present administration asked the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies to undertake a research. And that research topic given was community policing as a center focus. The theme then was given as strengthening internal security in Nigeria and community policing, models, policy options, and strategies. And that was given for the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in the year 2018. As we know, that's the apex think tank for this country. And after a whole research was done, the presentation was made to Mr. President with all the members of the Federal Executive Council in session. I happened to be part of that presentation. And there and then, the federal government adopted community policing as a way forward for us to address the complex policing of this, our great country. It's a way forward because when we look at our national outlook, with the vast land from the north, south, east, and west, we have diverse culture, language, and a lot of things. It is community policing that will bring policing nearer to the people, because it's going to be policing by the people, for the people, and by the people. And it's going to be on three stands that it will stand. It's going to be police-community partnership. It's going to be problem solving and organizational transformation. So when it was adopted, the government also set up another committee to build up and work out the strategy to make it happen. And that strategy is now what we are implementing. And the stages are sensitization. We are sensitizing members of the public already. The Inspector General of Police have gone around all the states. He has conferred with all the critical stakeholders. All the governors have been carried on board. We are on the same page. We have been talking with all the critical stakeholders, the academia, the media, the NGOs, civil society organizations, the whole lot of the traders and the people that are connected from the grassroots, the local hunters.
All right, so
what we are saying now is policing must be community-driven.
Okay, so tell us then.
To ask people
how, in terms of recruitment, what do we expect?
Okay, let me give you the structure. We're going to, as I speak with you, even in Kwara State today, there's going to be an inauguration of the Police Advisory Committee at that state. Mind you, almost all the states in the country, we have inaugurated this advisory council. This advisory council is called Community Policing Advisory Council at the state level. And that level, the people that are involved includes the governor. So the governor is going to be part of it. And then you have the State Community Policing Committee. You will have Area Command Community Policing Committee. You will now have also, at the divisional level, and then at the local government level, up to
Mr.
the
Everybody,
least police posts.
when people hear you say the governor will be involved, already to them it's an alarm bell. They think, whoa, governors will have to bring in their cronies. The other people won't have a chance.
No, that is not the issue. That's not the issue. As I speak with you, we have even passed that stage. The advisory committee members have been inaugurated in almost all the states of the Federation. They are to be on advisory roles. They are to play advisory roles. The real work is at the locals. Let us face reality. And I must bring in this quickly. The issue of trust and confidence must be taken very seriously in this country. There can never be two police but one Nigerian police force. We must have trust and confidence in the Nigerian police.
Mr. Ibadi, just one moment. You have not quite answered, just one moment. You've not quite answered the question of that recruitment. What's the process? You've only talked about the advisory council, which has only one, just one moment.
Let me.
Just one moment. Who has just, advisory role? The people, how is the recruitment going to be? Because the natural question people would want to ask you is, for instance, those states that already have some form of policing effort or the other, are they going to be factored in? Is the Taraba Marshals going to be factored in? Is the Hisba in Kano going to be factored in? Is the Amotekun in the Southwest going to be factored in? What is the recruitment model or strategy?
When you get to know who is going to be recruited, I think you need to know who is going to be recruited. Who are the people we are looking for? Then you now know how the recruitment will take place. Let me say it this way. They are special constables, and they shall be recruited as community policing officers. And the process of recruitment shall be guided by the provisions of Section 49 to 50 of the Nigeria Police Act. So the special constable is going to be an auxiliary police officer. So when we want to recruit, this committee that we have already put in place, they are the one that will check on the personality of those that will be recruited from local government to local government. Mind you, we have set up all these advisory committees at the local government, at the divisional level, at the area command level, and at the state level. Now, at the local government level, the committee members are going to screen those that are coming. They are officers of impeccable character. They have already their job. They are going to be auxiliary officers. We are expecting them to put in about 16 hours working hours in a week. So and the remuneration is going to be paid by the local, by the state government after we must have trained and retrained and we get them deployed to the local government where they have been recruited, because they know the culture, the language, the orientation, and they know the topography of the area for them to be able to work with the police at that level.
Let me ask you before you proceed.
Are going to be part.
Now,
right.
Number one is that if a governor bring in people to be recruited for this community policing, first of all, are they allowed to bring in people, and what happens if they bring in people? And secondly, how do you guard against if people are recruited who perhaps state authorities don't like their face, and then if they're supposed to be the ones to pay them, they withhold their pay? What happens in that area?
We are the one recruiting, mind you. We are the one that have the last say. The last say is to be said by the police. And we are looking at people that are employed, not just an unemployed person. He must be of a character that is not doubtful in the environment. And it is the local government committee that have been set up that are going to screen them. So it's not going to be a one-man show that any person will say, I'm installing or insisting one person should be a member. It's a collective responsibility at that level of all the members. And we have members that cannot stake their integrity for anything that can be called impunity. So at the recruitment level, we are expecting to get the best of the best.
It's something that you also said earlier, and I would like to clear it. You said the states are the ones that are going to be paying these officers. Is that what you said? Because if that is the case, they would have the right to bring in their own people. And as we say, he who pays the piper dictates the tune.
No, let's get it right. Like I've told you, these are community policing officers. They are voluntary officers. We have checked their personality. Their integrity is not in doubt. Now, it's just stipend that they are being paid. Mind you, they are gainfully paid. They are gainfully employed. It's just the stipends that is being given to them. So I know that when they must have come under training and retraining, we are going to kit them, and it's going to be uniform all over the country. I don't see any problem emanating from that, because from the recruitment up to the training and up to the deployment, we must have given them all that they need, and they will have the powers, the privileges, and the immunities of police officers.
Okay, let me understand this.
That they know that if they do any other thing contrary, they can be disciplined.
So how is this? Because if you say they already would have been gainfully employed, is there supposed to be the kinds of jobs that they have to be in to qualify as being gainfully employed? And secondly, if, for instance, maybe if I were to be the ones to go in for that purpose, what's the schedule? Because, I mean, they have regular working hours. How are they supposed to put in that 16 hours in the community for policing?
Thank you. This is not the first time we're having special constables in this country. If you want to go back the memory lane, we used to have the Saturday and Thursday police. And in those days, you have some teachers that work during the day, and during the evening time, they also work as auxiliary police officers. So, and you agree with me that policing in Ogun State is not the same as policing in the East, and they have peculiar crimes for peculiar areas. So we have crime mapped the whole country. The crime that is prevalent in a state is not the same that is prevalent in state B. So the local government level where he's working will work out the timing for how he's going to fit in to work at that level. And mind you, most of them are going to be used for intelligence gathering, because what we're trying to do is to be preventive rather than being reactive. We want to be proactive. And intelligence-led policing nowadays is more of getting intelligence before you even arrest suspects. So we will work that out at the local level with the police officers, depending on where it will be able to fit in, to be able to accommodate the working hours that he has in his place of work. And the modus is, we don't want to recruit just somebody that is looking for money anyhow. This person must have been screened, like I've said, and he has a good job, but he's doing it voluntarily. Like we have said, we are now committing the policing to our own hands. Let us be part of the policing of this country.
Again, Mr. Yebade, you just talked about a good job. What is a good job? I mean, what kind of job would they be that would not qualify them for such consideration?
That would be screened. That would have been screened at the level of the local government.
Okay.
Somebody who they are going to know in the society, and that's where the community comes in. So if you are there and you bring an issue that this man is not a responsible, respected, and diligent person that has integrity, then we will take it up. So it's the society that will dictate who are those that will come in. We want to let everybody know who is coming in. Police job is not just a job that anybody comes in. That is the job that will be done with passion, with voluntary presentation from him that I want to do the job.
Still on that recruitment,
we'll now bring him in and train and retrain, and then he fits in.
Do the people have to be indigents of the state, or if they are residents for a while, they can go?
Yes, local government, the indigent of that local government. That is the concept of community policing. Like I said, we are asking that when we have them, they will assist in problem solving, and it's going to be community driven. So they are going to be from that local government. They know the language, they know the terrain, they know the problems in that area, so that they can assist the police in getting to the root of the matter. If Mr. A is being looked for, they can give us the information on how we can pick it. Like what happened in Ibadan. That issue was community-driven. When that serial killer ran away, you can see that a lot of people assisted. And a lot of things happened even presently in the areas where we are having farmers, herders issues that is being settled even at the local government level, where it is not allowed to snowball into a big crisis that will be too much for somebody to control. So at that level where you have the issues, the parties are brought to the table. The DPO will bring the farmer, the herder that has issues, and the committee at that level, advisory committee, will sit down, how much was destroyed, how much is the cost implication, then they look at a way to resolve it. Issues of minor traffic accident or minor issues, you don't need to come because we have bigger issues to take care. So at that level, simple cases that can be resolved without escalating to something of a monumental nature. We can always use community policing to resolve.
When you say that they'll be employed based on the provisions of Section 49, I think is it 50 or 52 of the Nigerian Police Act, if I heard you right?
9 to 50, yes.
Okay,
yes.
But if you look at Section 49, sub 2 here, when it says that the special constabulary shall be and be deemed always to have been part of the Nigeria police force, and then it goes on. Does that mean that if you've not been part of the Nigerian police force, you won't get this, you won't have it looking, or there has to be some amendments to this act to allow this to happen?
Reading, be specific. Which section are you reading?
Section 49, sub 2.
Section 50.
49, 2.
No, go to 50. Go to 50. We are using 50, the subsection 50, where it says, subject to the provision of this section, the competent authority may appoint as a special constable any person, whether male or female, who has attained the age of, and then you can go down and see the details there. It tells you about even, as a special constable, 1 year or such period, he will be engaged and it can be re-engaged. It shall be appointed in respect of the police area command when you go to 5C, and then you see that it already provides that a special constable appointed in respect of a police area within the Federal Capital Territory. Everything is stated there. It's a law that we just need to follow, and it's explicit. There is no ambiguity.
All right, Mr.
Yabade, the public to change their perception.
We'll get to that. That's a very critical aspect of this whole conversation, building police community trust. But then there is a question that I hoped that you would at least make reference to over time, which you haven't. So let me ask you straight up. There is an Amotekun that is backed by law, different states in the Southwest, and the number of Hisba in Kano, of course, is already also a product of law. So what will be the relationship between the police, community police, and these efforts of the different state governments, especially those backed by law?
I am going to tell you straight away, by the time the community policing strategy and implementation comes fully into operation, everybody will follow suit. Everybody will join us and follow what we are preaching and what we are going to practice. I'll tell you how it will go. Now, I just told you that we are going to start the training and the retraining. And the sensitization stage is where we are marketing the product now. And I can tell you straight away that all the retired inspector generals of police are coming on board also to assist in sensitizing in all the geopolitical zones of this country, all the members that we have inaugurated. So they are going to come around and speak with them, and they will tell them how we go about it. Now, by the time we train and we deploy all of them, mind you, they will be kitted. There will be uniform for all of them at the local government level. They will be kitted. We will take charge. And by the time we take charge, whoever is giving any support, we are going to receive, because as it were, we will expect any outfit that wants to give information and intelligence to the police to do so. But be mindful of the fact that the country has only one police force, and that is Nigeria Police.
So are you saying that the police will absorb the different units, or they are just going to work side by side with the police?
they will have no choice than to work with us. They will have no choice.
Okay. Now,
it's a win-win situation for us. We are coming with a program that is backed by the federal government. We are coming with a program that is backed by the people. We are coming with a program, a strategy that is backed by all that we need to do to get the society along. So by the time we have all these men in place, and they are all over the country, and they are working, and there is proactiveness in our policing, and there are issues that are resolved that are not snowballing into crisis, I think people that are off the bar will have no choice than to join us.
Okay, so I'm just looking at this section 49 and even the 50 that you spoke about. So you're suggesting that, yes, section 49(2) says the special constabulary shall be and be deemed always to have been part of the Nigerian police force, and accordingly, references in this article, the police force, establishment, it went on. But if I'm still seeing 3 here. It says the special constabulary shall consist of special constables appointed in normal circumstances under section 50 of this act. And 50 talks about, of course, he has to be 21, not up to 50, good character, physically fit. He signified his willingness to serve as special constable. So we should look at 50 and disregard 49. The people don't have to be members of the police.
It's section 50. It's section 50. Section 50.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Section 50 is very explicit. And if you go and look at it, it tells you that the man is an auxiliary police officer. And he has all the powers and privileges and immunities of a police officer.
Okay. Markwa is also here. She's got some questions for you as well. Markwa?
Just quickly, listening to his explanation on, how the community policing is going to work, some people will say that this has already been made more complex than it ordinarily ought to. That why can't we absorb those structures that are already on the ground created by state government? What exactly is stopping the police from doing that?
No, nothing is stopping us. If by this structure we have created, if by this arrangement, the recruitment is going to be done, if part of those that are in that whatever outfit can go on and get the recruitment process and is able to screen, get through, and he's not seen to be a challenge at that level, and is trained and retrained and deployed back, I don't see any problem in that.
All right.
That might not necessarily happen.
You said?
Do you foresee a situation where that might not necessarily happen? You said something about having the backing of the people. The people also backed this local arrangements that, state governments have come up with. How do you see them supporting what you're coming with now, as it were, to superimpose on what they already have on ground?
That is why we are doing the sensitization now. The sensitization is to bring this to the people and to let the people know that the Nigeria police have a structure in place and we can accommodate. Like I have given you a scenario now. If 2 persons, maybe he has been in one outfit, happens to hear me today and decides to go on the screening and is able to come in after being checked to have been found fit, he comes in for the training and he's back in the system. So it's about people getting to know what is going to happen. We are not going to just keep quiet. We want people to know that we cannot continue to multiply issues of this one, that we need to streamline security arrangement in this country. And I tell you, when we have it and people have that trust and confidence in us, we've done it before and we'll do it again. It's just for everybody to come on board and share in what we have prepared. And that's why I went memory lane to tell you how the community policing concept was even, agreed upon and how it has been conceptualized. A lot of models were brought on the fore. And I tell you, we visited a lot of countries. We were in Eswatini, we were in India. There was a time in the country of India there, the police was at the lowest ebb, but they admitted and they came up with community policing. And that is what is happening all over. It's a global phenomenon. And so it cannot have a problem in Nigeria. People should come along and get these facts right and come on board with us. And we'll get it and everything will be okay.
All right, so let me ask, I mean, you say they've got to be from that local government. So if they live in that state and they are from that local government and don't live in that local government, they're not residents within that local government, does that mean they will not be considered?
The local government, I told you that we are going to have the community policing officers at the local government level for the recruitment. And it is going to be based on the personality of the person and the local government structure that is. We have 774 local government. So you have to go back to your local government, and then it is from there you'll be recruited. And when we train, you go back to that local government so that you can be part of, we can contribute to policing in that local government.
Okay, so if they are recruited into that community policing function, does it mean that as long as they are performing that function, they are not allowed to live outside that local government? And secondly, will they bear arms?
No, they are not going to bear arms. You should know the prohibited firearms cannot be. When there are issues that need that there should be firearms usage, the police will come and they will go together. Like we have said, mostly they will be used for intelligence gathering. So the issue of carrying arms will not necessarily come up. And where they need to accompany the police, maybe to get on to fetch a suspect or to arrest somebody or to support the police activities on patrol, the regular police officers will be there to carry the firearms when necessary. And in Nigeria of today, we are even saying that we do less of carrying arms and all of that. We have technology that is being put in place. Our technical platforms are working, and with that, we can reduce the issue of
we'll come to those emergency numbers in a moment.
We don't have roadblock.
What happens to outfits like Amotekun?
I have answered that. I think it is a phenomenon that I have looked at, and I know that those that are there, they will come on board and give the police the necessary support that we did with this structure that have been put in place. I've just said it. In all modern climate, you have one Nigeria police, and there can never be any other Nigeria police other than this one that the government is funding. And the government is saying community policing is the way forward. And there is a structure that have been put in place. And this structure is accommodating all the critical stakeholders, So I see it as everyone should just get, we are having a handbook now on community policing, and this handbook will be circulated. It contains all the information. It contains all the information about policing in Nigeria, all the stages, and we're going to circulate it all over. People will get to know, have the details, and see how they will relate and how they come on board. It's about getting people closer to us and let us solve challenges that can be resolved at the local level, small issues that should not snowball into a crisis. That is what is the concept of community policing. And this is what we are preaching, and that's going to what we're going to practice and give to members of the public.
All right, Mr. Adile Oyebade, the DIG in charge of research and planning for the Nigeria Police. We do thank you for talking to us today, and we'll put up those numbers, hopefully, later. Okay, do we have them now? Okay, so at least those are some of the emergency numbers that you can get across to from the police if you do require them. All right, let's take a look at some feedback coming through from you.
Oh, yes, sir. There are some messages coming in.
Yeah, we've got... Okay, I'm afraid we'll have to wrap it up today. We do thank you all for your comments there. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Ayo Makine. Have a wonderful day and please keep safe.
And Maokwe Ogun Yusuf, thank you so much for watching. Do be responsible out there.